Welcome to Empowered Living. I'm Ann Shu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Empowered Living, the podcast where we explore the habits and conversations that help us build more intentional, resilient lives. I'm your host, Ann Shu, and today I'm sitting down with Azizi Tuere, a writer, homeschooling parent, world traveler, and creator of the SparkMate AI tool for families. Azizi brings a fresh perspective to parenting and family life. We discuss treating your home like a startup and leading as the Chief Empowerment Officer. And we also talk about intentionally using tools like AI to spark creativity and growth in kids of all ages. From family meetings that give children a voice, to raising teens who see themselves as entrepreneurs, to traveling the world while keeping education alive and relevant, this conversation is full of practical wisdom and empowering reframes for parents. If you've ever wondered how to blend leadership, technology, and intentional living into your family life, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Hi, Azizi. It's so great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Okay, so before we dive in, tell me, where are you dialing in from? Because I know you are traveling abroad long-term with your family. So tell us where you're at. Tell us where your kids are at.
I'm actually in Santiago in Spain. My two daughters, they're at a camp in Norway. My husband is Norwegian. I'm American. We actually were there visiting. We were around Europe for about a month and a half, and then we landed in Norway to visit family. We found out about a camp when we were in London that was happening in Norway, literally 4 days before we were set to leave. So we extended 3 weeks. And so we dropped our kids off at the airport. They went to camp, and we got on a plane and came over to Spain for 11 days. So we'll pick them up in a few days from Norway.
Amazing. I want to come back to this lifestyle that you've built where you're able to be abroad and travel and homeschool. But let's come back to that, because I'm really fascinated by the work that you're doing with AI and the GPT that you built recently. Talk to us about why families should really start embracing AI, overcoming this fear that I have seen a lot of parents have around bringing AI into the home too soon, especially with kids.
Yeah, so I can totally understand that. And everything age appropriately, AI can be a really great tool. I look at the family like a business. In fact, it's a startup, right? You and your partner are kind of coming, or maybe it's a merger, right? You come from one family business, he comes from another, and then we merge together and we create this startup. And if we treat our family understanding that it's the first business and organization that your children are going to be in, every good organization has the right tools of the time, right? And AI is the tool of the time. And we would be doing our kids a huge disservice to not capitalize on this tool. And like all tools, I'm sure when the internet came around, there was, it's the devil. It's going to, it's going to change us. It's going to make us lazy. And yeah, those people exist, but really AI doesn't create later laziness, culture. And that's the culture around your children and how you use tools. You can use them, you can abuse them. And so I would say the best thing to do is understand the potential of this tool like any other and know how to be in command of it, because either you are or you're going to be missing out. And then you'll be playing catch up, and it's just unnecessary because it's so new. And so you're getting it right at the starting point. So we can all learn together and maximize that. Yeah.
So walk us through the different stages of a child's life and what AI might look like in those different stages.
Okay, so when you're first starting out, if you have toddlers, for example, this is where I would say a parent should be using it. I'm not a big fan of giving children just screens unregulated and at any time. You will not see, you would have not seen, well, they didn't have it then. My daughters were 14 and 16, but you wouldn't have seen them in a restaurant, for example, with a screen at the dinner table. That was a no no. You learn how to converse around the table like people do, like humans do. And so at that age, this is a parent going on and thinking about activities that they could do offline with their child. Maybe they see certain things or likenesses or things in their child that they want to just maximize. You can go and ask more questions. I use it like an area where I can gather prompts depending on what I want to do. We have family meetings. It's excellent for telling it what your goal is of your meeting, for example, when you have older children. So you don't have to literally use it. The child doesn't have to be sitting there. But over time, you can have this child understand how to bring ideas up and go back and forth with this incredible tool that can give you kind of like take your sparks and present all kinds of options that you have to then execute and iterate in the so called real world, right? So when they're younger, you're the ones doing things. Even the chat GPT, you can generate coloring sheets. I have used that to generate coloring sheets when I do workshops live, just to keep children kind of busy while I'm talking to parents doing workshops. It's perfect for that. This is not erasing you or erasing your role. It's maximizing it, making it happen faster. And you can save a lot of money because coloring books are expensive. If you have a child who's interested, you have a
Yeah.
printer at home. Now you have easy access to things like that. When they're older, though, and now they're in their 7 to about, say, 10, it's great for inquiry. Maybe they're interested in learning about something. We used to have to go to the library and to an outdated encyclopedia. You don't know need to do that now. I don't even know if they still have encyclopedias at this stage because everything is moving so rapidly. But now you can use AI to get ideas out there and have it be a starting point. The nice thing about AI now is that you can also ask for citation because you need to double check, just like we had to do before we just took anyone's word for it on the internet or when you were writing your report. We had to cite our work. So when my children are using it to get ideas about something or do research, you better believe they need to then go to some other sites or find some books that validate this or actually help them dig deeper. So we're not just using it exclusively because we can get things wrong. Someone can put the wrong information in. We don't know where they're getting it from. But it also teaches them how to research. And research is crucial for getting the things that you want. I mean, I'm in Spain. We use research. We're coming here. We need to figure out where is the supermarket? And we're using the internet for this. So using something like ChatGPT and even just having to check behind it is a skill. And this is where it takes someone from being lazy and just taking their word for it and actually becoming really a master of these tools and knowing that you have to check the work. Just like when you're doing your math, you have to check the work, right? So we're giving them an opportunity to get the foundations faster, but we can also have ways that it can even talk to your child about their interests. The app we'll talk about later, I created, is really about sparking things from interests or quirks or even challenges your child has. And then it will ask you questions first, instead of you asking it something and just wanting the answer. And so you could do that at pretty much any age, right? You can do that as an adult when you're stuck on an idea or looking for more. Uh, and another thing that you can do with it is throw around business ideas. Kids, we can take that lemonade stand and really upgrade it now. That's not the only business kids can do. Nothing wrong with a lemonade stand. But now you can go to AI with interests and you can say, hey, I'd like to create some products or I have an interest in this. Give me some potential business ideas at my ages, insert your age, something that I can do now to get started. Even if it's just a project, even if it doesn't have to be for money, but you can do that. And then you can start going through it with all the steps that you can take to make it happen. It'll help you create the documents. It'll help you figure out, because it has images, you can create flyers and you can start testing things out as a kid. My daughters have already have businesses and residual income, And we didn't have AI at that point. We created a cooking course together. We had to do all the research. We used Google and all the other things, but it would have been a lot faster for some of the simple things that we did. And now they can do that, but then they still have to record the videos. They still have to do the real work. It doesn't do that for you. And so there are so many ways, and I've probably given you way more than you need, but just to start getting parents looking at this as just really maximizing what we're already doing and being able to do it faster, because I'm all about iteration, right? You need to iterate fast so that you can learn from it. So you need a lot of experience and a lot of ways to do that quickly as children so that they can see their potential right away. So AI is perfect for that.
Okay, so you talked about little kids, you talked about big kids, but what about teenagers? Tell me what ideas you have for teenagers.
Oh gosh, for teen, because this is where I'm at right now. For teenagers, all kinds of projects. So I have a perfect example, actually. I created a creative writing class for my daughter, my 13-year-old, because we were using a homeschooling curriculum for grammar specifically. And we kind of got to the point where she had just really gone beyond it. And I needed something more challenging. I'm a writer, I write children's books. And so I understand the components of writing, but I wanted something that she could do guided as she gets inspiration. So I designed a creative writing course for her in AI. And so what she has to do though is she has to handwrite it, because that's a skill, by the way, using your hand to write. It connects to a different part of the brain than even typing. They know how to type, but it's important for her to use that skill. Then she uploads it into AI and it doesn't correct it as in like a pass fail, it offers suggestions. And then
Mm.
she goes back and she rewrites it and then she brings it back. So she has her own editor and writing coach alongside of that. Then I peek in there and I see what's going on and then we have discussion points for it. Now, what I have done is create a writing course. So she can't just ask it to write. And it's a family login, so I can see everything she's doing anyway, which you should also always do. You don't just plug and play and walk away. So we're all using the same master chat GPT. We have the Plus account. And so she knows that it's about her strengthening her writing. So she has to write, then she goes back. And then it as she gets better, it'll take her to the next level. And so this is great for kids who might be sitting in a classroom. I was one of those kids. I was over what they were doing. I was kind of in some areas I might have been a little bit behind. In some of them I was ahead. And you just sit there until you're ready for the next module. The teacher's ready to go on. You don't have to do that anymore. You can take it into your home, whether you're homeschooling or not, and have your kid go to the next level in whatever subject they're doing by programming an actual coursework in what creative writing, science, you name it, it's in there. And if you combine it with real world experience, whether they're writing it or whatever they're doing, and then use that almost like a tutor, then you're going to maximize your time and your child's going to be way more interested in the subject that they have a passion for, that they're just not being stimulated enough or keeping engaged enough because maybe the school is a little bit further behind or they're just not where your child is ready to go. So I highly recommend it. I mean, I have so many other ways, but I think this one right here is game changing for a child, especially children who are in school. The teachers just don't have the time to be able to know how to get every child where they need to be, but you can do that for $20 a month if you use ChatGPT. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about the GPT that you just built.
So I've been working on something and playing around with it with my kids, and now I feel like it's ready. I kept simplifying it because I have big ideas. So I start way too big and then I have to bring it down, down, down to something very simple and actionable. And so I created a GPT called SparkMate. And it's essentially a tool for parents to go to. It's right now I'm working on the app, but right now the GPT is for parents. A child could use it as well, but the way it's designed is for a parent who may see a child who has either a quirk or a challenge or even an interest, and they want to build projects around it or a way to keep them engaged and maximize on the bigger skills that they may not see. Or it could be something, for example, parent is like, all they want to do is play video games, for example. And they're frustrated because they feel like there are more skills, which there are, in the world than the 12-year-old playing Minecraft all day. You put it into SparkMate, you explain your issue. SparkMate's then going to ask you some clarifying questions to get to know your child better. Then it will give you kind of a 5-step answer where it first talks about different options that you can use and ways to do that in real terms, in real action. For example, if you take a child who's interested in all they want to do is they take so much time doing their hair and they seem obsessed with their hairstyles. This is probably girls. And you're thinking, I want to do something with this. I don't want to take this away from my child, but seriously, we need to turn this into something more than just a hair show. Now, this might help you figure out maybe your child should start doing a hair show and
Mm.
getting her friends involved and all the skills that it takes to do that. Now, she has to organize time. She has to organize schedules. She has to do customer service, right? She has to learn to take the photos or videos or however she wants to present it. And so you'll be able to learn all these different skills. And SparkMate kind of walks you through coming up with a very simple, actionable way you can translate something that might be seen as a challenge as an opportunity. So it's really just some way to spark an idea and iterate it in an actionable project that you can use in your home with your child. So that's the concept of it. And so far, I'm getting some great feedback because as parents, we want the best for our children. And we have this idea that you need to know all the things. You're going to school, you had 8 subjects. I just want to make sure they're doing all the things.
Yeah.
And all the things are great, ticking all the boxes, fine. But really, when we leave, most of us are then supposed to fine tune that into one thing, right? And suddenly it can become too narrow where you only see that one thing and you can't see all the other skills and attributes that are outside of it. That if that either doesn't work out or you get bored of it, you think I've gained nothing by just playing around with hair. But if you do
Yeah.
it the right way, you're building all the skills that can be applied to almost anything if you know how to do that and utilize the many skills that it requires to do pretty much anything if it's done in a more intentional way and you build projects around their interests so that they stay engaged. There's reading, there's science, there's all the core curriculums are going to be in any project your child is interested in if you can see it as a potential instead of a problem.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to, you mentioned something in passing earlier, and I want to dig in a little bit. You mentioned that you guys do family meetings. Now,
Mhm.
at Empower Journey, we teach family meetings, but we teach them to the couple for them to do as a leadership team for their family, right? It doesn't involve the kids, but it sounds like your family meetings involve kids. So tell us about how you're doing those family meetings, what the agenda looks like, what the cadence looks like, all the details so that if somebody's listening and they're interested in doing a family meeting with their kids, how they might get started.
So I highly recommend family meetings, and they change as your child evolves. In the beginning, we did rose, bud, thorn. That was our family meeting. What I mean by a family meeting is when the everyone gets together where there is nothing else going on. The agenda is family and focusing on each person checking in. And so when they're younger, we don't have an agenda of okay, speakers list and things like that. But the rosebud thorn, if anybody doesn't know what that means, is that you tell us something that was a rose that day, something that was kind of good that happened to you or you enjoyed. The bud, something that didn't work so well. Maybe you want to try it differently or wasn't what you expected. I don't want to say negative way, but a challenging way. And then there's rose bud is something you're looking forward to. So rose, something that was great, bud, something that's on the cusp. For younger kids, it might be, oh, tomorrow we're going to Great Adventures or or we have a birthday party. That's great because it's getting them looking at some potential in their future. And then of course there's the thorn. And the thorns are where the real juice is, right? Because when the child is expressing their problem or their challenge, that's when you can listen and look for patterns and look for ways that they can solve it or do it differently. We try to not assert ourselves so much unless it feels like it's a teachable moment during this time. But mostly you're just listening and you ask questions. Well, what could be done differently? Or what would you have liked? And then sometimes that thorn can easily turn into a bud. So that's what you can do when they're younger. You do that maybe as soon as they can really talk and communicate, right? All the way up until about 5 or 6. And then you start transitioning, especially if they're starting school, whether it's homeschooling or not. Now we have some goals in mind. And so we do it quickly. What have you been enjoying that you have been doing? It's rosebud thorn, but it's just a little more elevated, a little bit more advanced and the way we're wording it, because we also want them to get familiar with terminology they're going to hear and being able to express themselves in things that are feeling good, areas for growth and potential, and areas where they're like looking forward into the future, because that's projection that requires intentionality. And so as they get older now you're asking about what are your goals for this month? I usually recommend you have an overall monthly goal, because if it gets too long, forget it. I mean, even for us, you give yourself a 6-month goal, you really need to get down in it. Seriously police yourself because it gets too big. A month is great because then you can break it up by weeks so that they can see how they're going to get to that. So, what's your goal for this month personally? And then something that is kind of educational based. Right now, my daughters are also in entrepreneur programs for teens. And so they also have their entrepreneurial or kind of, yeah, their entrepreneurial kind of vision. So they have that personal, their educational, and their professional in a way, right? And as they get older, it certainly evolves, but it's kind of in those areas. And in the beginning, you want to just check in. How's everybody doing? Don't go straight to the boardroom on it. These are kids. This is your family. Keep it lighthearted and write down what people's goals are. That's important so that they can see, okay, are you on track each week? And then by the time you get to the end of that month, where are we? And it's not like it's a pass fail. If they don't get there, they'll see that. And you ask, well, what could be done differently? Do you need support from me? Have we not been supporting you in the areas that you need? What could we have done to help this along more? What do you think you could have done? So it's more of that kind of thing. Or we kind of can also talk about any things that we're thinking, you know what, girls, I noticed your rooms were really messy. Things like that can come up, but keep it brief and keep it very like matter of fact. I know you had a lot going on, but just remember cleanliness is really a reflection of yourself. We kind of just speak about if you come into an office, would you want to buy from this business if it looks like that? If you go to someone's home, would you want to eat from their kitchen if it looks like that? So we kind of speak in a way of them being able to see it externally. And then we also have ours, the adults have theirs. I also recommend it, depending on how many children you have and how much time you have, to get some one on one meetings with them. It doesn't have to be weekly. We can because we homeschool. I usually do one with my oldest daughter on our walks. But even if it's just 15 minutes, just a 15-minute check in. Our family meetings are about a half hour. Beyond that, we find that they're checking out unless
Yeah.
it's something really good. So don't go thinking this is like an hour, 2 hour meeting. Forget it. No one's going to look forward to that, including the adults. So let's be honest, right? So keep them brief. 30 minutes. If it's got to go to 40, you need to have more than 2 children. So you really need. And then we're exercising listening skills, right? So you have to consider that how much time each person is going to be able to allocate and be able to listen and be engaged, depending on their age.
You do them every week?
So we do them, well, recently, no, because we've been traveling, right? So our family meetings have been a little bit differently. We're kind of on, I don't know what we would call it. I wouldn't call it vacation because we literally together all the time. Um, but we had different kind of check-ins. We were much more relaxed on the goals because we're traveling.
Yeah.
And that became our thing. But we did do some things while traveling. We had some goals of like, what are you going to be focusing on while you're here? Because we're not just here to be tourists. We don't live like that. So we did actually have some projects when we were in a few places where they were doing some research. We went to see some things based on their interests. So it changes. It becomes more action oriented. And then we were doing interrail. So we were on trains a lot. when we were on the trains, it kind of just matter of factly happened. We actually checked in more, to be honest, because we were on a train every 3 days. And some of them were 3 to 6 hours long. It was a crazy trip. I don't recommend doing that, but we did it. It was wild and we don't regret it. But don't go to countries like that. But we ended up checking in a lot more because we were sitting on these trains, and we just kind of did more check in around the trip. How's everyone doing? Is it, are you getting enough rest? You getting what you need? What are you excited about in the next place? So we ended up having them, but just not as in our normal structure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the travel because I feel like there's so many parents out there that want to spend more time traveling with their kids, but it's kind of overwhelming to think about. What am I going to do about school and then all the logistics and moving to a new place and so give us a crash course because I know you've kind of been on the road, if you will, for a while with your kids. Where does somebody start?
First, start at home. Start with weekend trips.
Okay.
Don't just go, all right, we're selling everything, we're going out in the world. No, 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 no. You need to first start at home. I actually have a whole workshop somewhere I could probably dig up and send you the link to of why you do not. I've met these people, they don't last long. You need to start at home. And I really do mean in your home. If you are not planning if you're planning to homeschool, what kind of homeschooling? Are you doing a school online, literally, where they have to be on for a few hours a day? If so, does that work with where you're going? Are you doing a homeschool curriculum that you're getting from your local school because maybe it's only temporary, maybe it's only a year? Are you building your own? Start at home first. And if possible, if you plan to homeschool and you have if someone's able to be home first, trying that out to get everyone on board, I would start there. We started at home. I'm saying this from experience. And it was really great because we were homeschooling way years before we left as a family. And then I started traveling on my own with my daughters. While my husband was still working, I would go out for 3 to 6 weeks at a time on my own, traveling with them. They were 4 and 6. I might not be the best person to ask this because I jump in, learn to swim later.
Yeah.
And we haven't drowned yet, so that's fine. But I'm very good at being in the field and learning in on demand. Sometimes you need to have certain things prepared, and then other things you just need to test it out in the field. But when it comes to how you're going to be, what's the structure around your home, please start at home. Homeschool at home. If you need to figure out, are you doing remote work? Are you doing consulting, freelancing, starting your own business? Start that first before you leave so that you know your strengths. Some
Mm,
people find that they're actually not very disciplined when they don't have a boss. Last thing you want to do is realize you've run out of money because you weren't disciplined enough to keep doing what needs to do to finance this trip. We live in a world that uses money. And so all these things should be tried out at home. That's why I say travel in the summer. You can do workaways. You can do work exchanges with your family where you get living quarters for free. It may only be in one place, which is fine, but you can do this kind of farm trips where you're working if you're interested in farming or eco villages. There are a lot of different opportunities that you can do before you actually just pull the plug in. You don't have to do what I'm doing to be out in the world and giving your child a worldly experience. You can do it on their school breaks. You can do it in the summer. You can also ask your school. Many schools actually enjoy this because the world's becoming so global. And they'll give you projects to do while you're out there that are specific to where you're going. So there are so many different ways that you can do this. And depending on if you're in the US, what state you're living in, there are stipends even for homeschoolers to purchase courses and do different things as homeschoolers. I was in the state of New Jersey. We didn't have any of that, but states like California does, where you actually get a certain amount of money that will go towards curriculums and materials. And those are great because you can find online programs and start testing them out.
So, how did you land on your homeschool curriculum? How did you decide which there's so many. I've done
Yes.
the research and it's Overwhelming.
Infinite. Every time you count them, about 10 more has probably been created that day because homeschooling is no longer the thing of that strange family that everyone's only heard about. It's quite common now for
Yeah.
people to be doing all kinds of different ways that are technically in the homeschooling field, even down to just creating homeschool pods with a group of families. So for me, a lot of it had to do with what I thought was really important as the foundations. And reading, writing, and math were extremely important. So I taught my daughters how to read. I researched what are the best methods. This was before ChatGPT. So I had
Mhm.
to do the good old fashioned research with Google and Facebook groups and popping in, asking other homeschoolers lots of questions, joining local homeschool groups to see what other people were doing. And then I looked at my children and matched it up with their personalities and what I thought I could get out of it. So we don't use a one and done curriculum. We have always pieced things together. So when I say our homeschool curriculum, I don't mean like I'm doing the 8th grade curriculum. I mean our home built curriculum that we put together based on what our objectives are and then where their interests are at. Once I taught them to read, the whole world opened and they could then read everything. And then that's what I did for the next year. I taught them when they were 5 and 7. My youngest was 5, my oldest was 7, and they learned at the same time. And after that, they just read. I put everything that they wanted to learn about just in books and just so that they can start showing me where they would be more motivated to learn all the other things based on what their interests were at reading. We lived in the library. Even before I taught them to read, I was reading to them in the womb. So reading is really important to me. Obviously, I'm a writer, so it was really important. And so my oldest daughter, because some people thought 7 was late. Like, yeah, maybe if you're graduating from college at 7, but it's not late at all to learn to read. And by 9, she'd read all of the Harry Potter series, including the screenplay. And so at that point at 9, she's on a college reading level because those books are actually quite lots of what people might call big words. And it's the British English standard. So it's actually correct grammar. And so by 9, she's reading at a college level. There's nothing, then we're kind of done in a way
Yeah.
with, cat in the hat kind of stuff because that just wasn't going to be enough. But when you homeschool, you can keep giving them more and more based on their demand. And my youngest daughter, she learned at 5. She was like, great party trick. She read just sort of more silly books, and now she could order her food, which was her big thing. Turns out there was a lot more in the menu than I was telling them. So
I've been going through that. I'm like, why? Stop looking at the menu.
all they have are salad and smoothies. That's what it says. And then they learn to read and they're like, But they have a good palate because of it. They didn't grow up on a junk food diet because it wasn't on the menu in restaurants. So yeah, you put together the curriculum based on their needs. We use another program called Math. In kind of the math world, Singapore math and math are kind of similar in the way it's taught. Singapore math is considered the highest, but we wanted something a little bit softer and also kinesthetic. They come with these little manipulatives. And my
Mm.
youngest is quite kinesthetic. She needs to hold things. And so we went with Matthews. And I think now my husband is the math teacher. So don't quote me on this. I believe they're on algebra but they've done all the pre-algebra and geometry and all that stuff and they're good. They're 14 and they're almost 14 and 16 and they're good. They're actually doing better than they actually helped their high school or their college cousin who was taking math. My oldest was like, oh, we already did this. And so you can do a lot when you homeschool because you just keep going. We don't have summer breaks because
Yeah.
what are we breaking for? We did live differently. We break according to need. So they haven't been doing any of this while we've been traveling because it's not relevant. And what they're learning in the real world is way more beneficial than doing algebra. But they'll be back to it in 2 weeks. But what they've been learning in what we've been doing is real life skills that they could take anywhere. So I would recommend people think about what it is. What's your goal for homeschooling? Why learn anything? And then you start piecing it together rather than, oh, what are the schools learning? Because then you can just keep them in school, or you can just ask the school for a curriculum and they'll hand it to you. That you paid for it in your taxes anyway. But if I'm going to compare my children to what's happening in school, then I say I just keep them there. We were trying to do something that was a little bit more unique and custom made. And so therefore we had to go off script and be willing to adapt. So when something is not working, we scrap it. When my oldest daughter got to 13, I wasn't impressed with the next year grammar and literature. She already expressed wanting to be a writer. So I said, the next project is to write a book. So
Mm,
she became a published author at 13 because she used that to research. She ended up picking scuba diving because she was certified at 10. And she created a book called Because Kids Can Scuba Dive. And so she had to do the research on what it required to get certified. She checked in with the school she was certified when she wrote the book. They helped her edit it and go over some of the facts. She had to work with finding an illustrator on Fiverr because it was a picture book. So she had to learn to speak to freelancers. There was a lot more skills involved than reading Anne of Green Gables. No offense, we like Anne of Green Gables, but it just was for my child, it was better for her to start writing because that's where she said her interests were. So we built a whole curriculum, a real writing curriculum with the track of being a published author. And she still gets residuals from those books. And so now
amazing.
she has a product that's just selling. She could be learning to do marketing, but the point is that it wasn't about the sales, it was about the process. So and then she has something to show for it. How many people can say that at her age or even at our age, right? And the average person hasn't written a book. So, yeah,
Love that.
this is how you do it.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your idea of being the CEO of your family instead of being like a manager or an employee. And I know that when you talk about being the CEO of your family, you talk about being the chief empowerment officer. So let's talk a little bit about that and this idea because, I think parenting like a CEO really reframes what it looks like to show up as a leader for your family.
Right? People go through all kinds of training for their jobs, even to get that job. They go to school, they do all these things. And then in their families, they just kind of wing it. Like, well,
Mhm.
I'm sure I'll figure it out. And we have people that we are growing into adulthood, and it's just not fair to them to just kind of be that employee that only does what they're told. Because when you're a parent, that's not a good idea. Your children are watching, they're modeling that behavior. So I try to explain it this way. Employees take orders, CEOs take initiative. This is why you do not want to be an employee in your home. Because who are you taking orders from then? Who's now in charge? And so now you're at the mercy of whoever is telling you, the experts, the teacher, the mailman, I don't know, anyone who is saying this is what should be done because you're
Mm,
taking orders. You're acting as an employee. If you act as a CEO, oh, everything changes now. You learn that you have a team and your children in a way are like stakeholders, right? So now what is my obligation to them as a CEO with a vision, not just someone following a plan that was put before me that I didn't even approve? Would you do that? Would you want to work for that CEO? Would you want to be an employee in that company where it turns out the CEO has no idea of the company vision and he's just winging it? She's just going taking it as it comes. Would you really want to work for that company? So then we can't really expect why our children might not want to really thrive and show up in their homes if we're not acting in the capacity of a CEO, and why they trust the teacher's advice, which a lot of parents found out during COVID when they were suddenly home with their children. Man, my phone was hot because I had so many calls with parents who were like, we get it, Azizi. We finally get what you've been talking about. This is so hard. My child won't listen. They won't respect me. They're like, you're not my teacher. And I'm going, well, you haven't been acting as in the capacity as the expert in your home when it comes to their learning. And so they're going, well, who certified you? And so now your child is challenging you because they're not used to, in a way, taking orders from you where they think it counts. They don't think that you're qualified. And so this is not to say that people can't send their children to school, but you send them in the capacity of a CEO, meaning those schools and those teachers are in a way on your payroll because they are. When you do that, then you stop waiting and sitting idle to see how your child is doing at report card day or figure out what kind of resources your child needs. And then when they don't do well, then you're angry at the teacher, but they're living at home with you. So think about that when you compare business, one business to another. Would you actually be able to keep your job at the capacity of the way you're running your title or taking it seriously or not? Would you honestly be able to keep that job? And some of us need to fire ourselves and start again. And that is fine because you need to know where you're at to know where you're going, right? So this is why I say you want to get in command, get out of control, right? Because a lot of people just want to maintain control in their homes. Everything looks like it's working. But I look at it like you're a captain of a ship, and the captain cannot control the water. So they need to get really good at commanding their ship. So that come, as they say, hell or high water, you know how to navigate that ship through rough waters. And you're not only just doing well when it's smooth sailing, because that's not how real life works. And that's also not the message we want to teach to our children, that they should always just look for the easy route. And so changing it to you being this chief empowerment officer, which you already are, it's just a matter if you know it or not, changes everything. So I hope that that makes it clear.
So, if somebody's listening and they're realizing that they need to make a shift in their family, what do you suggest as the first step?
Mission statement, just like every major company would do. Get clear on your vision and your values. And you need to write that out because you need something that's you're going to look back and say, am I reflecting that in my home? So that sounds like, oh, it's wishy washy. No, there's a reason why every major company has a tagline, has a mission. And when you are hired, they're expecting you to uphold that mission. No excuses. So you need to have a mission statement for your family. And it can change as it should as you get more clearer, as your children evolve, as you evolve. But the essence of it, like the real values, the undercurrent should remain the same. How you execute it must and should change according to everyone evolving. As your children evolve, you're supposed to evolve to match that as a parent. I was somewhere recently and I heard a parent doing baby talk. We never did baby talk. No shame on anyone who does. But here's why. I turn around to see a parent talking to what looks like a 14-year-old. And I'm thinking, oh no, no. It's time for that parent to rise up in the ranks. We do not talk to a 14-year-old that way. This 14-year-old needs to be respected. Baby talk has no place in there with that kind of no. It actually sounds even awful when you really think about it. A baby is probably pretty annoyed being talked to that way when they have to learn how to speak properly. But this is to say that a parent has to learn to evolve in that company. How else do you get a raise in a job? You have to evolve your role. And so you need to understand your mission of how you're going to do that. And you have to get clear in your vision and values. So start clearly with the mission statement, and that'll start to direct you of how you're going to get there. I've had some parents realize, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. I have been outsourcing too much. And some of them changed their lives around. Some of them were already consulting where they weren't in an office and they realized it's just taking more time out of my day to have to do all these things after work. And then I'm spending so much time on school from, 5 to 8. And instead of homeschooling and incorporating it, there have been people they have done that when they got clear on their real vision and values for themselves and their children. They realized they were actually doing the wrong things the right way. A lot of people are doing that, right? And so that's not going to work for your vision. And it doesn't have to look like anyone's else, and it shouldn't. This is not a comparison game. But when you do that, it'll start to help you see what steps need to be taken next. But start there.
So, we've talked a lot about parenting intentionally, using AI intentionally, traveling abroad, family meetings. Tell me if there's anything that you want to share with our listeners that we haven't already talked about.
Oh, wow. We've covered a lot. I think you're a great interviewer, by the way. So thank you so much. You had all the key things. I would say one of the main things that parents need to understand is that I said this the other day to someone very near and dear to me. Parenting is not a paycheck. A lot of right now, especially because so many people come from different circumstances where They may not have had the things when they were younger. And a lot of parents are putting a lot of things because we are so much more access to many people now. And they're shoving too many things that are getting in the way. Parenting is not a paycheck. It is actually about creating a loving, thriving, connected environment where a child sees their worth inside, not outside. So you might need to do a survey of your home and really take a good look of how much stuff is literally getting in the way. You know, people ask, how can you live out in the world like this? We have nothing weighing us down right now at all. We live in Mexico technically now. We've been living there 2 years. But if we needed to pack up and go, we could pack up our bare essentials each in a suitcase. I'm not
Mm,
saying you need to do that, but when I look at my life, it has so much value and meaning, and it is so full, and none of it has to do with the stuff. The many screens, the all the different stuff the kids want, but they haven't earned. I would say get back to basics with a lot of this and realize that it's not about how much you make, it's about how much how much value time you spend, where you direct your time and not where you direct your dollars. And so that's probably the lesson I would say. It's all about knowing the right tools that you need. And you'd be surprised how little you need when you start to zoom in on your vision. That's why you have to get clear on your vision and values. We cut out a lot of things that just didn't match our family, including Christmas, for example. We don't celebrate Christmas. It just doesn't match our values. There are things that we just said, you know what, Scott, it goes, but we love birthdays. We will celebrate a birthday like it's Christmas. Not with the gifts though, with the appreciation. You know, they get maybe one thing or an experience, but we celebrate you. You are meaningful to us, but things dropped. So we don't celebrate Christmas. We don't celebrate some other things that just don't have any meaning for us as a family. And so you realize, wow, I'm pretty light. And now we have some more time. We're not weighed down by all the things and the places we have to go and all the things we have to do. We're too busy really just honing in on each other and our value that we can give to ourselves in the world. And that's more giving than receiving.
love that sharing. So if people are listening and they want to get a hold of you and they want to continue the conversation with you, how do they find you?
So I'm out there on the internet. If you look at my website, which you'll probably put in the show notes, it's azizituere.com. There you'll see I've got some books there. You can sign up for my newsletter. I'm on Instagram and Facebook under the same name just to keep it simple for everyone. I post and I speak about everything around family and the power of our potential. And it varies depending on what is happening right now, but it's all the same. Just it's just iterated differently depending on where I'm at. And so yeah, check me out there. You can also email me at Azizi at inherwild.com. So Azizi at inherwild. You can email me. I get questions from people. I love answering questions and connecting with people and seeing how I can help you figure out where you're at and put some things into place for you to start practicing it. It's really just about experimenting with life.
I love
And
that.
please check out if you go to my website, actually, and you want to try out the GPT, it's totally free because really we're building a beta app. And so I really want to get parents trying it and giving me feedback. So go to my website, azizituere.com, and then you'll see an area to try our SparkMate AI, it says, and then sign up and I'll send you the GPT link. And then I'd
Love,
love to get your feedback on it and try it out in your family. Start making some things happen in your family and kind of sparking that potential in your children.
yeah, love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Thanks for tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them. Because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.